This is the first meeting I've come to. I've listened to all the people back here behind me. I've listened to all you fine gentlemen up here answering questions. And what I've noticed is, and I understand being focused completely on the water, and water is everything. But you need to think about the routes to this destination, the trucks. Who is going to be in charge of checking the tires on these trucks to make sure that the rubber is good, that their brakes are working? Our county sheriffs here in Guadalupe County are already overworked. The state police are always on 98 because of the trucks and the heavy traffic now. You have school buses on these roads. People run right past the lights on the school bus signs. And so it's just not how you're going to affect with the water and your liners and your clay. Everybody knows eventually clay will break down and it will leak. Most tanks do around here. So you have to take all the water out, dig them out, resurface them, and reclay them. Sure, maybe it's not the large amount, but clay is still going to break down. So with the liners, look at, people that have ponds. How about the zoos that have all these big fancy koi ponds? The liners eventually break down from sunlight, from people throwing things in them. There's another thing. What goes into this dump? A can of ant spray that'll eventually rust out, and maybe the remaining ant spray and poison that's in the can leaks out. How about needles from somebody that's a diabetic, or somebody insulin, or somebody that uses illegal drugs? What do they do with their needles and their syringes? They throw them in their trash. Is there going to be a person there to look through every trash bag with an x-ray machine? There's so many different areas to look at. And I just hope that when you do look at this, that you do look at all these areas. These people out here, this is where they live. They're here every day. They live through the droughts. They live through the floods. They pick their lives back up after every incident. And I haven't seen anybody say anything yet about who's going to pay for this if it does leak to help these people pick their lives back up and go on. Thunderbirds, they'll probably go bankrupt and move out of state, like most companies. But anyway, thank you. And you'll have a good evening. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. University of Dallas. Followed by, I believe it's Colton Gage.
Good evening. My name is Marisa Perales, and I'm here on behalf of Stop Post Oak Dump and the Guadalupe County Groundwater Conservation District. And we will be submitting some written substantive comments at a later time once again. But for tonight's meeting, I'd like to focus my comments on the process, and in particular the faults in the process, as opposed to faults of the same. And as you noted, as you guys have already noted, this whole process started more than 2 years ago, when Post Oak first submitted their request for a land use compatibility determination. And even back then, they failed to do their due diligence. They failed to consult with residents in the area who had some knowledge of the unique and sensitive features in this area. They failed to consult with the Groundwater Conservation District. They failed to consult with Seguin, with state legislators, with any number of people or entities, geologists even, who could have told them that because of the unique and sensitive features in this area, this proposed site was completely unsuitable for the proposed landfill. And ultimately, their failure to do due diligence was reflected in the shoddy work that they submitted to the TCEQ. This shoddy work ultimately required at least 3 NODs and 4 requests for information, and this was only on parts 1 and 2. And still, they didn't provide all of the information that the TCEQ staff asked for, even after those 7 NODs. Meanwhile, some substantive comments have been provided by the entities and the people I mentioned before, by residents in the area who are familiar with the sensitive features here, with abandoned oil and gas wells, by geologists, the Groundwater District. All of these comments have been submitted and were provided to the applicant. After considerable time, plenty of resources expended by TCEQ, by the impacted residents, by by the entities that I described, the technical review was finally finished. But before we could even get our contested case hearing, Post Oak decided to drop its request for a land use compatibility determination. And instead, they have now submitted a brand new application requesting a landfill permit for the first time. And I submit to you, and by the way, as you know, they've already received another notice of deficiency with another 110 items that have been noted as deficient, including parts 1 and 2. I submit to you that this application should be processed as a new application with a new number and a new notice, because that's what it is. It's no longer a request for a land use compatibility determination. It's not simply a supplement to the previous request for a land use compatibility determination. And in fact, we now have new information in parts 1 and 2, and we can expect to get additional information in parts 1 and 2. And so it should be processed as a new application because that's what it is. For the first time, they're asking for a landfill permit. And while you're at it, while you're requesting that this be submitted as a new application, I suggest to you that you also take the opportunity to require Post Oak to do it right this time, to do their homework, consult with people who have knowledge of the unique features of this area, acknowledge that the Groundwater Conservation District has a rule that prohibits landfills over this area. Require them to do their due diligence. Require them to present a comprehensive and accurate depiction of the site. Require them to follow your rules. Require them to use your guidance documents. And require them to respond to your notices of deficiency. I submit to you that this is a good time to send a message requiring professional engineers and professional geologists to comply with the appropriate standard of care. Had they done this in the first place, perhaps they would have noted that this location is not suitable. Perhaps they would have identified all of the abandoned oil and gas wells. Perhaps they would have acknowledged that there is a groundwater district rule that prohibits a landfill in this area. Let's not waste any more time and resources. Let's not do their work for them. Make them do their own work. Make them spend their own resources. Make them work with the groundwater district. Make them comply with your rules. Make them acknowledge that there is a groundwater district rule that prohibits this landfill, and make them work to resolve it before they come to you, before they submit their application. In doing so, you may also get the added benefit of actually complying with the assurances that you have made to the Sunset Commission. But this application, quite frankly, after 2 years, is in rather embarrassing shape at this point. Again, you're asking about the abandoned oil and gas wells. Again, you lack information about the regional aquifer. And I think that you should be indignant at this point. I mean, after all, in your latest NOD, you noted that they failed to include the location of the recharge areas within 5 miles. The Groundwater District could have given them this information. And in fact, the Groundwater District has provided this information to you, and they've also told you that a landfill is not allowed over this recharge zone. I think it's time to take note of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Gage, followed by David Gage.
Good evening, my name is Paul Gage.
Could you spell your first name for me?
C-O-U-L-T-E-R.
Okay.
Short and sweet, my comment to the left. Gentlemen, I don't want to hear salesmen. I want to hear facts. So whenever you come up to us and you approach us, we have facts. We want to hear the end of the deal. I don't want to hear hypothetical situations. Anybody can come up with that any time of the day, any time of the week. There's good and bad on both ends. There's hypothetical here, there's hypothetical here. That being said, gentlemen, to my right, I grew up working all over this type of building. As my career progressed, we got more involved in safety issues. One thing that I learned through the dangers of gold and everything else is rules, policies, procedures, and laws are written in blood. And that is simply stating that people die and people lose their lives before these policies go into place. I'm asking y'all to use a little bit of common sense and identify the hazard that exists before we fall in the scenario